What exactly is H1B? What exactly is EB1A?
In the US, there are two types of visas generally. There's the non-immigrant visas, and then there's the immigrant visas. Right? EB1 is a special path.
You got EB1A?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. That's Melania Trump, that's Einstein. All of these people kind of made use of this path.
Let's compare rentals.
2 BHK would be probably $2,000 a month.
And what about food?
I set a budget of $10 a week, and I was able to pull it off in like $9.75.
How are people in India different from people in USA?
In India, the individual intelligence is very high. In the West, individual intelligence is relatively less. So one day I was working late. There was some other issue on the manufacturing line. And I was like, hey, we gotta fix this issue. Let's get into a conference room. So the lights turned on, and then I suddenly hear a voice. It's like, who the fuck is that? And this is Elon. Like, he was sleeping in the conference room essentially.
So what is one thing you think India can learn from USA?
How do you put the right person in the right place where they are able to deliver the maximum value regardless of their educational qualifications, regardless of anything else that they have done?
Tell us more about your experience of working in Tesla, and did you get a chance to interact with Elon Musk, and what did you learn from him? बहुत सारे लोगों को यूएस जाना होता है एंड उनको वीजा नहीं मिल पाता है. बहुत सारे इंडियंस ऐसे भी जिनको ग्रीन कार्ड भी नहीं मिला अभी तक, एंड आपको पता भी नहीं है कि 1.2 मिलियन लोग जिन्होंने ग्रीन कार्ड के लिए अप्लाई किया है इन द यूएस बट उनको मिला नहीं है. आज हमने बात की कि कौन से टाइप के वीजाज होते हैं यूएस जाने के लिए, कैसे आपको वीजाज मिल सकते हैं, कैसे आपको यूएस में ग्रीन कार्ड मिल सकता है, एंड व्हाट आर द बेनिफिट्स ऑफ गेटिंग अ ग्रीन कार्ड इन द यूएस, एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंटली आपके इनकम या एक्सपेंसेस कैसे हो गए यूएस में एज कंपेयर टू इंडिया. वी हैव कॉल्ड साइमन शेट्टी, हु इज द फाउंडर ऑफ स्मार्ट ग्रीन कार्ड्स, जिनकी कंपनी हेल्प करती है लोगों को टू गेट अ ग्रीन कार्ड, एंड at present they have 150 families who have gotten green cards using their platform. So if you are someone who wants to visit the US, make sure to watch this entire episode till the end and share it with someone who wants to apply for a US visa or get a green card in the US. Also, I was going through my YouTube analytics and I saw that 82.1% of my YouTube audience has not subscribed to my channel. अगर मैंने आपको थोड़ी सी भी वैल्यू दी होगी ये कंटेंट के थ्रू, so I'll request all of you to please subscribe to this channel so that it can motivate my entire team and we'll get you the best quality of guests and give you the maximum value additive content possible. Thank you so much for watching our content and keep sharing all our videos with your friends, and make sure to watch this entire episode of Konversation with Kushal. Hi Simon, welcome to Konversation with Kushal. How are you doing?
Doing good, Kushal. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Thank you so much for being a part of this. How are you liking coming back to India?
Oh, it's good. Every time I come to India, that's a new thing. It's the growth story is amazing to see, and it's kind of like sampling, right? Like you are there for a year, you come back for like a month or two, go back for a year, come back for a month or two. Every single time it's different, and it just amazes me.
So tell me, what is different in India as compared to the last time you visited here?
I'll tell you what was different the last time I visited India compared to the times before I visited.
Yeah, sure.
So the first thing is everyone laughed at me because I was paying in cash. I didn't have UPI because I was in the US for a decent amount of time before I came back last year. But then I learned my lesson. So then I got all the UPI things sorted. So now no one laughs at me anymore.
I think UPI is a phenomenal revolution which has happened in the Indian economy, especially when you just go and travel in rickshaws or cabs and you see that you can pay in UPI. And that just takes 1 second. That is like a phenomenal revolution which has happened.
Yeah, and people I think in India take it for granted because everywhere else in the world, if you look at it, there is no kind of digital public infrastructure that the government has set up so that entrepreneurs can build on top of it and stuff. There are companies that are like ground up like Venmo and Zelle and all that, but it's nothing like UPI. I mean, you should not underestimate it.
I completely agree. Just before we start our entire conversation, can you just quickly tell us about yourself for the entire audience who don't know you, and what have you been doing, what kind of work and what kind of impact you've done?
So, I'm originally from Udupi in Karnataka. Everyone knows Udupi for the food. So that's where I'm from. Studied there, went to the US for my master's, did my master's. I'm mostly an electrical engineer. I'm into controls engineering. But, there's this kida of entrepreneurship in my head. I like to look for problems and keep solving problems. Not just as, in a startup, but it's also generally like wherever I'm working, I literally like to find problems. So did my master's, got this amazing opportunity at a little known company called Tesla at that time. At that time, truly nobody knew about Tesla.
What year was this?
I started at Tesla in 2016. Okay. People in Silicon Valley knew about Tesla, but people outside of Silicon Valley did not. And for a brief period of time, even though I studied in ASU in Phoenix, I moved to Atlanta to work for a company for a brief period of time. And when I was handing in my resignation saying I'm going to Tesla, they're like, what's Tesla? So then I moved to Silicon Valley. I was part of the autonomous vehicle revolution as well as the electric vehicle revolution through Tesla. Built amazing products there in different capacities. Worked at Tesla, Lyft, which is the second largest rideshare network in the US after Uber. Then I moved to Neuro. So one thing led to the other. And then I was faced with this major problem of immigration, right? So despite being there working for all these impactful companies, I was not able to crack the H1B lottery because that's just a lottery, right? Random pick. And I was not lucky in that. So I had to figure out an alternate path, which was purely based on extraordinary ability. It was not a lottery. And one thing led to the other. I figured out that, hey, there's this path called the EB1A, got the EB1A Green Card. So a lot of work that went into that. And then I realized, hey, this is not a problem that I just face. This is a problem that lakhs of Indians are facing in the US. Then I decided to do something about that to help people basically use their own career path to do extraordinary work and qualify for this kind of, visa category eventually. And that's the birth of Smart Green Card. That's the company I run right now. And that's the tale so far, past 10 years in the making.
That's amazing. Tell me one thing. So how long you have stayed in the US? For how many years?
About 10 to 12 years now. Yeah, okay. 12 years, including the time I studied there. Yeah.
Got it. Now, after Donald Trump being elected as the president of the US, how do you think that is going to impact the Indian immigrants in the US?
See, not a single day goes without me getting asked this question, especially recently. People often forget that Trump was also president once before this. So largely speaking, I think over the past 4 years, all the things that he could not accomplish in his first term, he's going to revive that. But generally speaking, my opinion is that if you're doing things right, if you're doing things legally, and if you're following the rules, I don't think people should have any trouble. I interact with a lot of attorneys, generally speaking, in the immigration space. They all have to say that, in places where it's like undocumented, illegal immigration type of a thing, yeah, there's a huge crackdown, as any country should do. But in places where, it's about legal, high-skilled immigration, opening up the world for the best and the brightest people, there hasn't been much, issue, even during Trump's first term. Like, for example, fun fact, not a lot of people know about this, is I got my green card under Trump's first term. And then, of course, we started Smart Green Card, and that expanded over the past 3 years, which is like under Biden. But this all started under Trump.
So how difficult was it for you to get the green card during that time? So
my H1B drama happened under Obama. Obama's last term, I guess. Obama's last year in office. And then after that, Trump came into power, and I worked hard over that past 1 year between Obama and Trump. And then, my green card got approved under Trump. So back then, not a lot of people were applying for the EB1A because there was not a lot of awareness about it. Now, of course, the numbers have risen as well. But it was the standard, law that they were applying for cases.
Got it. So now, like, for someone who doesn't know about all these things, like you use terms like H1B Lottery, or you're using terms like EB1A. Yeah. So can you just in simple terms, break down what exactly is H1B, what exactly is EB1A for someone who doesn't know.
Yes. So I'm going to give you like a US Visa 101 here, right? And for all practical purposes, I need to let people know that I'm not an attorney. I'm not an immigration attorney, so this is not legal advice. So don't follow what I say and then So see, in the US, there are two types of visas generally. There's the non-immigrant visas, and then there's the immigrant visas, right? So non-immigrant visas are visas intended for you to temporarily be there. It could be your B1, B2 traveler, like a visitor visa. It could be student visa, which is F1. It could be your H1B, which is the work visa. All these are, non-immigrant intent type visas. Then there is another set of visas which is called immigrant visas, and the nickname for immigrant visas is a green card. The official name is immigrant visa or permanent resident status, lawful LPR, lawful permanent resident. But then the nickname is green card because the card used to look green and it still looks green, and that's how the nickname got derived. So these are the two broad areas. Now, the thing with the green cards is that there is a set quota of how many green cards the US can give in a year. So even within green cards, there are two ways to get a green card in the US. One is through a family path, that's family based. The other one is employment based. Family based, most Indians don't really go after like the family based because most are necessarily like going to the US for employment, and that's how their story continues. So within the employment based, there are a bunch of different tiers. There's employment based first preference, that's the EB1. Then there's second, third, which is the EB2, EB3. Then there's EB4 and EB5. So EB5 is the investor visa, where you invest like $800,000 or something like that, and you can get a green card. EB2 and EB3 are the most crowded green card paths because Indians mostly apply for that. Companies mostly apply for that on behalf of Indians and any other people, any other nationalities essentially. EB3 is where you need to have you need to be a high skill talent essentially, and then EB2 is essentially where you need to have like an advanced degree, like a master's or something, which most people end up having after going to the US. So those are the most crowded paths. EB1 is a special path within which there are three subcategories. The EB1A is for extraordinary ability, people with extraordinary ability.
You got EB1A.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And a lot of people don't know this, but that's Melania Trump, that's Einstein. All of these people kind of made use of this path to get their green cards. And the nickname for EB1A is the Einstein visa. So there are a bunch of the bar is very high. You need to satisfy. You need to prove. We can get into that. You need to prove a bunch of things to the government.
What are those bunch of things?
So there are 10 10 criterias. Either you will have to have won like an Nobel Prize or an Olympic medal or something, that one-time achievement award. If you have that, then you will qualify for the EB1A. If you don't have that, then the government has set up like 10 criterias, out of which you need to meet a minimum of 3. Those are like, you should have won some sort of a lesser nationally known award, some sort of memberships you should have in high tier, institutions or associations. You should have judged the work of others, and you should play some critical role in your workplace. Also, your salary should be like at the top of the field. There are other things like you should have appeared in a lot of press, or the media should have covered you or your work. There's also if you write papers in your field as a thought leader and publish it in places where there is a review committee which vets your work before publishing, that is also valid. Then there's other ways to show that you have had a major there's other ways to show that you have had like an original contribution in the field. So these are kind of around 8 criteria, and then there are like 2 more, which is like commercial success. Your work should have a lot of commercial success, and your work should be featured as part of like major exhibitions and stuff like that. Mostly that's for artists. You should have satisfied like at least 3 of. Essentially, if you look at these criteria, what they are trying to filter out is that you should be the best of the best in what you do. That's a magnet to attract the best of the best people in the world. So that's EB1A. Then there's EB1B and C, which is mostly for like multinational managers and outstanding researchers. The beauty about the EB1A is that it's not tied to an employer. The EB1A is self-sponsored. Nobody even needs a job offer technically. You don't need an employer. Almost every other green card category needs an employer. So what happens at that point is that you become overly dependent on the employer. Then the employer has the cards, right? Like they play the cards, and if the employer, God forbid, lays you off, then you have to, if you join a new place, you have to restart that from scratch. And you might be like several years into the process, and then again you start from scratch, so it's a very painful experience for people, very psychologically draining experience for people. And I'm happy that our company, which is Smart Green Card, is able to help a lot of people, succeed in this journey.
So what achievements you had when you applied for the EB1A Green Card?
So when I was working at Tesla, I was working on technologies that were very important to the US, and it still is a priority to the US, and it was one of the most advanced companies in the field back then. And me writing about that, being a thought leader about the electric vehicle space, about the self-driving space, and within that I worked on battery technology. Especially within battery technology, I worked on the manufacturing of batteries. And within that, I worked in the building of robots and the essential equipment on the line that needs to manufacture, that is needed to manufacture a certain type of battery pack. So you see how like there's a very specific expertise that was required in order to have a good thought leadership in that space eventually. So this is what I tell people also most of the time is like, if you are a software engineer, or if you are even CS, for example, or people who are experts in accounting, they also can go after the EB1. It's not only restricted for technical people, but the funda is that you have to be a very specific expert in a very specific thing, and there can be a small number of people in that, and you are one among that. That is what you have to prove.
Got it. Very, very interesting. I read somewhere that if someone is applying for a green card, there's also like a very long waiting period. And I was reading somewhere it also takes anywhere between 30 years to 50 years and even to 100 years in some cases. So is this true? Like 100 years is like almost like your entire life. So is this true? And why is this happening?
Yeah, you will get your green card delivered to your grave at that point.
Yeah.
There's a long story behind this. See, in the US, the green cards, Congress sets the number of how many green cards need to be, and it has not gotten revised at all. So it's like employment-based green cards, 140,000 total employment-based green cards are available in a year to give. Now, within that, there are several, caveats. So the one caveat is, I think, around 28% or so of that big number should go to each category, meaning EB1, 28%, EB2, 28%. So each category gets roughly around like 38 to 40,000 at that point, right? Now within that, there is another caveat that not more than 7% of that number should go to people who come from any specific country. Now what happens is, if someone is going from, let's say, Sri Lanka, or someone is going from Ghana, they will not probably send a lot of people every year, those countries, because of the population and stuff like that. But people from India, I mean, even the number of students that go from India are like probably 1.5 to 2 lakh students go every single year. At any given time, I think the recent stats are there are 350,000 students in the US that are Indian. Now, what is 7% of 40,000? It's around 3,000 to 2,800. Yeah, that is the number of green cards available for people to permanently settle from India through any one of these paths every year. Now, if you have like 1.5 lakh people going just as students, now there might be more like an additional number of people going from other paths as well. Where do you go? And that creates a backlog. It's like, okay, now you get a spot in the line, and you keep waiting for your spot to, get current essentially. So right now, on paper, they are processing applications from 2012, but it doesn't move one-to-one, right? Like every month it doesn't move like the next month and the next month. It's just stagnated at a particular month. So it moves like maybe 3-4 months in an entire year. So at that pace, it'll take you God knows how many years. And this is the frustration. And it's not just waiting for the green card. Like people will wait for the green card, that's fine. The frustration comes in all the other ways that you struggle. I'll give you some examples of our clients. One of our clients, their father passed away when they were in the US and waiting in this green card queue, right? And the father was in India, passed away. Now he had to make a decision. If he had to come back to India to, have the final rights of the father, then the wait time in the US embassy to restamp his H1B to re-enter the US is about 4 months or 5 months. Now his employer is not willing to give him 4 to 5 months of work from home. He's like, leave the company if that is the case. Now you have to make a choice between attending your dad's funeral versus keeping your job to feed your family. That is a choice that no one would want to be in a position to make. But, he had to make the choice to stay in the US. And he regrets it to this day that he was not, at his dad's funeral. This is just one side to it. There's a lot of people in the US, Indians in the US especially, when they plan a trip to India, they plan it around embassy dates. Not, okay, हाँ घर पे कुछ शादी हो रहा है, like not around that. It's like, okay, शादी तो हो रहा है, लेकिन embassy के dates क्या है, stamping के लिए visa के, and then I'll plan my trip. So your choice itself is skewed, and how long will you live this kind of a life? So people put up with it for a decent amount of time, but now, especially the latest generations, they are like, hey, what the heck, like, what is this thing going on and how long will it last, type of a thing. I'll give you an example of another client of ours. The weird part is, if you have a child that is not US born, the child is not US citizen. We had a client that had a Indian born child, and early, like, when the child was 1 or 2 years old, the dad got, or the family got an opportunity in the US and then moved to the US. Now the child is not a US citizen and is under the parent's visa, right? Like the H4 essentially, which is dependent on H1. And in that you can't work. Now that child is probably in the US for 8-10 years, whatever, in high school. So US may, in high school, other people work, and they all these opportunities open up, but this child cannot work. So you are pretty much, you grew up in that culture, but still you don't feel part of it because you are not, all the opportunities are not open to you. Then it gets even worse, because once the child turns 21, the child can no longer be on that parent's dependent visa. So now you have to start your whole journey back again as if you are going, from scratch, like, maybe an F1 for a student visa or some sort of a work visa or whatever. So the same struggle that the parent went through starts from scratch when the child goes through that again. So one of our clients, their daughter was turning around 19 or 20. They barely had a year's time, and getting an EB1 is not an easy thing. You have to work quite a bit over a period of time in order to build a profile where you can legitimately prove that you've risen to the top of the field. If now the client is approved and like the daughter is in college, but then if that was not the case, then the daughter would have needed to scramble for her own visa status. That's one. Second, they would have paid like double or triple the fees, because now you pay out of state tuition. You're not like resident tuition at that point. So the ramifications are huge. These are just two examples. But there are, in every nook and corner, there is some or the other personal trauma that someone is going to. So if you ever come to the US, I'll take you to some Indian parties around, and you will immediately see that there is no party that you go to where Indians are there, where visa, green card, stamping, all these is not a conversation. You will never see a single party.
What is the most interesting conversation you have come across in US where Indians are talking about visa or green card?
So there is this thing called priority date. So priority date is basically your spot in the line. So whenever you do your first ever green card application, the company does it in most cases when it is EB2 or EB3, right? So you get a spot in the line. And if you apply, like let's say today, today's date is your priority date. And then maybe someone would have applied like 5 years ago, their priority date would be 5 years ago. So now, the comparison over there is of priority dates. It's like, तुम्हारा क्या है? अच्छा मेरा ये है. अच्छा मेरा तो ये था, लेकिन here it's like Sharma ji ke bete ke maar kya hai type thing. This is the adult equivalent of it kind of in a lot of parties there. And I wouldn't say it's funny. It's really not funny. It's kind of sad. But then, this is how it goes. This is how the uncertainty is.
But then tell me, like I was also reading a stat which said that the total backlog for Indians to get the green card is 1.2 million, which is 12 lakh people. Like they are in backlog for getting a green card. So what is the solution to this problem? Like in the sense, how can someone get a green card, or how can they expedite the process?
See, as of now, since there is a fixed number, it's mostly a supply and demand issue, right? So there's no real solution for this problem until and unless Congress acts. And even in that case, it'll come in bits and pieces. Like there's a huge movement right now, and that is basically asking them to be like, hey, it's okay if you don't expand the number of green cards per year. We understand that might be a hard thing for Congress to do, but why don't you lift the 7% cap so that like more people who are struggling in the backlog, especially Indians, only Indians face this backlog, maybe even Chinese people, but not anyone else. Theirs is pretty quick, everyone else, because of the population, supply and demand type of a thing. So just lift the 7%. But then the concern that arises over there for lawmakers there is that the 7% cap is there for a specific reason. It is there so that, not all people from one single country crowd it's a culture thing at that point, right? Because you get a lot of Indians in a sudden rush. And then now you have two sides of the aisle of that question, right? Like, do you really want a cultural mix, or do you want to trade that for merit, or what do you want to do? That's the thing. So realistically, within the limitations that are there right now, the two quickest paths for Indians are the EB1 and the EB5, because EB1, we have clients who have priority dates of 2013, 2016, 2018 and all that. They've applied, their company had applied for them back then, but then there's this backlog going on, so they never got their green cards even now. Now what happens is when they are stuck in the EB2, EB3 queue, which is still processing applications from 2012. Now, if they have experience, they've been working, most of our clients are working more than I have worked in the US, in their careers. And they have some good amount of work experience in the US. The thing they can do is they can use all of that work experience, maybe work for another year, 2 years, whatever, become a thought leader in your space. Yes, you probably have worked in the office, you've kind of delivered some projects which were of certain impact. You maybe have, a few $1 million of impact under you. Write about it, like talk about it, publish about it. Anybody can do this when they have a decent amount of experience. So the goal here is to basically evolve your own professional profile to a point where you can show that you are one among the top of a small number of people in the field, and then qualify for the EB1. Yes, like the next question is, will it increase the rush towards the EB1? It will increase the rush towards the EB1, as it has over the past 4-5 years. But the point is, not everyone puts in this work. And when everyone is not able to put in that work, you have the edge there, where it's good for your career also, because who doesn't want to be a thought leader in the field? And while doing that, you have the chance to qualify for this, extraordinary ability path as well. That's one. The other path is the EB5. And of course, if you have 850 to 1 million $850,000 to $1 million outside the US of your own money, and you somehow bring it to the US and invest it in certain projects, etc., you can potentially qualify for the EB5. So these two are the realistic, quote unquote, quicker paths at this point in time. But yeah, I mean, this is how the situation is.
But what exactly is the benefit of having a green card? So for example, if I am applying for a green card, or if I am applying for a non-immigrant visa, and a green card is basically like an immigrant visa, which you said. So what is the benefit if I have a green card? What all can I get access to, and why should I go for that?
First of all, you are not tied to an employer. If you are on an H1B, which is a work visa, you are tied to an employer. The employer holds your H1B. So if you lose your job, you lose your status. So your H1B goes, along, and then there's a grace period of 60 days. You have to find a new job in 60 days, and then like transfer the H1B and stuff like that. And every time 3 years ke liye they approve that, and then it's renewable for another 3 years. But most of the time, like when people come to India, they face a situation where they'll have to restamp it and stuff like that. So there's all this drama. At the same time, you are tied to an employer. If you have a green card, you can be unemployed also. Like, it's basically, you have the right to be there. You're a permanent resident over there. You have the right to be there. You can't vote, and you can't serve in certain public offices, right, which need citizens. And then you have a pathway to citizenship where 5 years on a green card, and you can apply for citizenship. So that's how, and once you become a citizen, a lot more additional opportunities open up where you can vote and stuff like that. But trust me, most of the Indians are not necessarily there that they, not necessarily upset that they cannot vote in a US election. They are struggling because, hey, we feel suffocated because of this. So it kind of brings you that amount of freedom. If you are on an F1 student visa, that is tied to your studies. So if you are no longer studying, then your visa is the basis of your visa is no longer there. But if you have a green card, then you are settled there essentially. Yeah.
And if, let's say, any student is watching this, which is my primary audience as well, and they are going to US now in the near future, how difficult it is for them to go to the US, and what would be the solution for them? Like, what is something that they should keep in mind?
See, whenever people go to the US, there's a lot of data or information out there about how do you select your university, how do you go there, how do you, select, how do you stay, how do you save on finances, etc. There's a ton of material. But the thing that barely anyone talks about, and that's why there's a lot of darkness in this area, is how do you navigate the immigration, like the immigration journey, until you have like a permanent residence kind of a status, right? Because if I knew the things that I came to know when I failed to get my H1B, if I knew those things even before I went to the US, then I would have start in an academic environment. You can publish papers well. You can do a lot of research. You can dive deeper into a topic, work with professors, work with other peers maybe who are doing PhD, just help them out, and you become part of a paper. So there's a lot of avenues, and college environment have a lot of access to entrepreneurship competitions as well. Maybe you can pitch ideas there. Get traction for those ideas and build something on top of that. There's a lot more opportunities you come across in your student life which are free. In fact, people pay tons of money for these kinds of opportunities later on, which you are getting for free. And how do you use all these opportunities really well is something that you need to know. Now, the irony is that people spend, I think now getting educated in the US costs anywhere between 50 lakh to a crore or something. And most people who go to the US are, or anywhere in the world essentially, they take a loan and they mortgage property or whatever. They take some sort of a loan. Now, because you have taken a loan, you have backups for everything in your mind. You have backups for, अच्छा ये university नहीं मिला तो मैं यहाँ जाऊँगा. Like there's ambitious, moderate, safe wala categorization that you make, and there's also backups of like, I'll apply for these many jobs, I'll line up these many interviews, I have multiple offer situation, and this is my first preference, second preference, third preference type of a thing. For pretty much everything there's backups. Yahan tak ki even for countries some people have backups. It's like these are the universities for US, but ye nahi work hua to I'll go to Germany and blah blah blah. But one thing surprisingly that people have not thought about backups for is ki agar H1B nahi mila, or if like how do I have a backup for my entire immigration journey? The irony is that in all other things you have multiple options, but here there are only a few options that you can go after, and you're kind of because especially students are not aware of that, the breadth of their immigration journey, they wake up to that reality later, right? So mere case mein kya hua tha, the same thing happened, right? Like because I went to the US and studied, worked at the most cutting edge companies there. It was people's dream to work at Tesla. I got in there, was delivering a lot of impact in impactful projects. But then I never thought that, what would I do if I do not get my H1B picked? And that's what happened, and reality hit me, and that's when I had to figure out ki, okay, like what are the paths here now? How do we navigate this hurdle? There are a lot of illegal band-aid paths that people take, which I highly recommend not taking. That's the knee-jerk go-to which most people do. If you have prepared sufficiently from your earlier days, then the backups automatically start appearing for you. For example, if you don't get your H1B, then if you would have built a decent amount of profile building like I mentioned, you would potentially qualify for the O1. Now O1 is not a green card, but at least it's not a lottery. It's an extraordinary ability visa, which has the pretty much the exact same qualifications as the EB1A, which is a green card. But EB1A takes time to apply and then get the green card. And so it's a longer period. It takes a slightly longer period of time in processing the paperwork. But O1 is pretty quick. So if you don't get the H1B, you can go for the O1 if you have a profile already. But then if you don't have a profile, you have no choice at that point. This profile building, if you start from your student life itself, you have the gift of time when you're a student and the gift of opportunities that are free. So use all of those, build it up, and then build a profile for the O1 so that, yes, maybe you may not have to use that, but because you got the H1B or something. But if you have to use it, you fail in the H1B, file for the O1, get the O1. And the best thing over there is you have probably built enough profile for an EB1A green card as well. So in my case, at that point, I was very sleepless. I was pretty much almost in depression. But 3-4 years later, when I look back, that H1B failure is the best thing that could happen to me. The reason being, I was able to then subconsciously start building my profile and evolve it over the next year to 2 years to qualify for an O1 type of a visa, and then eventually I qualify for the EB1. And if I did not get that, then I would have been waiting for decades without even knowing that acha ye ho sakta tha. And that's why we recently also started a student plan on Smart Green Card to basically focus on students. It's like, how can students navigate this journey? And they have time. So I really urge students to think about it.
Yeah, I think it's rightly said, whatever happens for the good. Mm-hmm. So in your case, it's been proven. And you also mentioned that the cost of education in the US would be anywhere between rupees 50 lakhs to rupees 1 crore. How is the income and expenses different in US as compared to India? If you can give some examples and numbers, that'll be helpful.
So the general stats, or it's kind of like a rule of thumb for most people who go to the US, 20 LPA in India, or 20 to 30 LPA in India is about 100K USD in the US. In terms of salary, adjusted for taxes, adjusted for standard of living, all of those, this is the comparison generally speaking.
And now, $100K basically is rupees 80 lakhs. So
yes.
So you're saying
86.
Correct, yeah. Now it's 86 lakhs rupees. So you're saying that a person who's getting a 20 lakhs per annum job, rupees 20 lakhs per annum job in India, can get between $100,000 kind of a job in the US.
No, that's not what I mean. I basically mean if you're comparing apples to apples, to get it to a point where you're not comparing apples to oranges, a person needs to make around 100K in the US to meet the similar standard of living and tax adjustment as 30 LPA in India.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. So that's because in certain states, if you're living in, let's say, California, of course, if you make 100K, it is not 50%, but generally speaking, most people in tech make a little more than that. And a lot of my friends end up paying like 50%, 52% top marginal tax at some point in time. There are states like Texas, where it's just federal tax, no state tax and stuff. But broadly speaking, these are kind of like the unfactored variables. Expenses are relatively high. Now, what do we want to compare, right? Like pick something. Let's compare.
Let's compare rentals. That is the most necessary one. How would it be different in India versus US?
Okay, so in the US, it depends, right? So if you're maybe, let's say in Phoenix, a 2 BHK would be probably $2,000 a month or something.
$2,000 a month.
Yeah, $2,000 a month. But that's not even like a major city. Like if you are in San Francisco Bay Area generally, which is maybe comparable to like, main Bangalore area type of a thing, you are probably looking to pay like 3,500 to 4,000 per month for a 2 BHK. 1 BHK is probably 3,000 something. Now let's compare that to even it's the same as New York. So let's compare that to Mumbai, right? Like how much is a 1 BHK over here?
In Mumbai, a 1 BHK would be in the range of like let's say the premium societies. A 2 BHK in a premium society would be rupees 1.5 lakhs per month, like in a location like this in Lower Parel. In let's say a lesser premium society, I think a 2 BHK would be in the range of 80,000 to 90,000 rupees a month.
Okay, yeah. So maybe a Lower Parel equivalent would be like $4,000 a month in the US.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
What about travel? Especially like in cabs, or how do you travel there?
There is no public transport. I mean, there is public transport in cities like New York and stuff, which people use. Now, in other cities, the funny part is that there is public transport. I think it's majorly because like certain cities have these laws that say there shall be public transportation or something. So you run a few buses just to meet the letter of the law. But if you see, like even in the San Francisco Bay Area, right? Let's say San Jose, if you are in a car, if you look at buses going around, you will barely see like 5 people in a, 50-seater or something. This is standard. Buses running empty is standard. So you become dependent on private transportation a lot. It's a very car-driven economy, like a gasoline and car-driven economy. So it's very likely that when you graduate, if you want to reach your work on time, you need a car. So, and cars, you get it even for 0 down payment. That's one of the pluses and minuses which students usually don't know about the US. Debt is so easy to get, and consumerism is kind of coded into the into the daily workings of the place. That if you've recently graduated from grad school, and let's say you have like a job that is 150K salary or something, or 100K salary, let's say, it will be relatively easy for you to go get like a an Audi or Jaguar or something like that. Maybe not Jaguar, but most of my friends like immediately got like an Audi or a BMW or a Mercedes. This is like standard stuff. Most of the times you don't need any down payment or very little down payment, which anybody would be able to afford after like a month or two of salaries. But what you don't realize is how long you mortgage your future paychecks in the beginning of your career, right? And as a result of that, 2-3 years later, when they were like, hey, I feel like buying a house now or making some real estate investments, that's the point when they discovered that they did not have borrowing power, because most of your paycheck is being eaten by this car right now, which is a depreciating asset. So I'm not the one that says that, hey, don't buy good stuff, but I'm just alerting people that it's much more easier to immediately fall for those impulsive buys which come in the form of a Mercedes, which later might affect your abilities to make a worthwhile investment.
Got it. And what about food? Like, how would the expenses be different?
Food, if you are eating, at home, cooking, again, it also depends what you cook. I wouldn't suggest people do this, but I ran an experiment during my student life. This was in 2013, 2014. I set a budget of $10 a week, and I wanted to see if I can survive on $10 a week. And I just bought dal, bought rice, cooked at home, ate some vegetables as well for sabzi, and actually I got some fruits as well. Okay. And I was able to pull it off in like $9.75, and I had 25 cents at the end of the day. It was just an experiment. I don't recommend anyone to if you can afford it, like spend more. But it is insanely cheap by US standards if you actually cook, let's say, Indian food at home. But then if you are into, going out quite a bit and stuff, then money flies pretty quick. I think in the Bay Area, any meal out, I don't think you'll be able to, for one person, be able to wind pretty much anything up under $20. So
$20.
$20,
which is around 1,600 rupees.
Yeah.
Got it. I think in Mumbai, it'll be around rupees 500 to 700 per person at a slightly less premium restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
At premium, of course, it will go up depending on what all do you order.
And I'm not, for $20, I'm not even talking about fine dine. I'm talking about like maybe not a hole in the wall type of shop, but like a normal type of place. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
No, very, very helpful. Just coming back to the H1B lottery, which you mentioned. So why do you say it's a lottery, and what exactly is this concept of lottery, and how many people get this?
Yeah, so H1B is essentially a visa type that is for high skilled workers. Okay. So what happened is, before a bunch of years, this lottery wasn't even there. The reason is because they have a certain number of H1Bs also. So there's a quota, right? Like there's around 65,000, and then there's like 20,000 reserved for master students. So 85,000 H1Bs that they can give every year. And maybe like 2 decades ago, 2008-ish, 2009 time, until that time frame or so, or it could be a little earlier than that, I'm not so sure, but until it was before even I went to the US, so obviously. So until that time frame, there wasn't a lottery because that quota was not getting filled most of the time. But then what happened is a lot of Indians started going to the US. A lot of other nationalities also started coming to the US. And then you have a lot of applications coming in for the H1B, and there's this quota. So how do you do that, right? In the green card situation, they are building this backlog. But in the H1B situation, what they do is they put everyone into a computerized lottery, and lottery mein jo nikla, they get the H1B. The others are, sorry, bad luck this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And how many people usually get this?
There are 85,000 every year to give.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And what percentage would they, like, for example, how many total people would be there, and out of which how many percentage of them are lucky to get?
So last year, I think there were about 3 lakh people that applied.
Okay.
3 to 4 lakh people. So now the odds are like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5, which is pretty ridiculous.
So is there any hack or some catch which you recommend everyone who is applying for US visa? What is something that they should do or keep in mind, something that they wouldn't know?
So if you don't get an H1B, right, I wouldn't call this a hack. I mean, basically legal ways for you to kind of explore or think about. There's another path within the H1B called the H1B cap exempt. So there's 2 types of H1Bs for people who don't know it. There's cap subject and cap exempt. The cap subject is basically the category of H1Bs that's subject to this 85,000 cap. There is an exception to that, which is if someone is working in, let's say, a non-profit or research institution or higher educational institution, stuff like that. In fact, there are a lot of people, my friends who I know, they are working in Stanford Healthcare. Now that is classified as like a research institution. So the government has basically said that if you're working in any of these types of institutions, then you don't need to worry about, you don't need to count under the cap, the 85,000 cap. So then you apply and you instantly get approved for that if you meet the basic qualifications of it, right? Like the salary qualification, stuff like that. There's a few things. But then most people are not that. Most people don't fall into that like researcher category. So they anyway come under the cap subject H1B side. But if they are able to find jobs which are cap exempt, meaning in research institutions and all that, then you may be able to, apply for this lottery-less H1B. And the weird part is the lottery happens once a year. Okay. It happens around this time frame, right? Like March, April, May. That's called the lottery season. That's when a lot of people are like, anxious. It's like, hua ki nahi, and all that. But cap exempt H1B, you can apply at any point in the year because it's not subject to a lottery. There's, of course, there's a catch in that also. First of all, the cap exempt institutions who are research institutions or non-profits, etc., they don't pay that much as these other places. So you end up settling for lesser pay. The second thing is you are not able to kind of jump quickly into a cap subject employer later if you get another job. So you're stuck with only this line of people, and for that again you have to go back to the original process again. So there's these kind of invisible handcuffs that kind of come in the way. The way to not have this invisible handcuffs is to go for the O1A. So the O1 is essentially for extraordinary ability people. If you follow the same process as you followed for building an EB1A profile, you will potentially qualify for like an O1. And then once you get the O1, it's like you can work for pretty much any employer. Of course, they should take the sponsorship of it. You should transfer it and stuff. But as long as you meet those bars, there is no restriction that, these are the only type of employers you can work for and stuff. And at the same time, you are also maybe halfway or 3/4 of your way towards an EB1A, which is a permanent, solution to the problem.
So let's say, for example, if I apply to something like a Stanford Healthcare Center that you mentioned, okay, and then I settle at a slightly lesser pay as compared to any other jobs, and I go there and I quit that in the next maybe 30 days or 60 days, and I find another job. So like that is something which is doable then? So, I still have my visa.
Another employer should be able to take that on, right? It should transfer. Okay. So for it to transfer, they should be eligible to sponsor that cap exempt H1B.
Okay, so I will be able to work only in again a research center
or anyone that qualifies for cap exempt.
Okay, yeah. So I can't move to a private company. Let's say I can't go to a Google or a Microsoft with that.
No, because they are profit-making entities and they don't qualify for that cap exempt kind of.
So that's what you were saying. That again, I'll have to apply for the entire process of H1B.
Right.
If I move to another employer.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you get a cap subject H1B, then you can keep, again, you'll still have to transfer it, but you can move around the cap subject employers. Yeah.
And what is the validity of all these visas that you mentioned?
The H1B, usually so the H1B, they issue it for 3 years. Okay. And then after those 3 years, it is renewable for another 3 years.
Okay.
And after those 3 years, it is not renewable. So you get 6 years. There is a caveat to that also. You can renew it beyond those 3 years, the second 3 years, if you have already started your green card process. So maybe a company has already started your green card process by then you got your priority date. Then you can continue, you can indefinitely keep renewing your H1B until your priority date becomes current, and then they process your green card and then you get a green card. So that is how the H1B works. When they issue you a green card, they issue it for 10 years. 10 years in most cases. In some cases, like which are marriage based and stuff, they issue it for 2 years, and then you have to prove that you're still married, and then they give you a 10-year green card and stuff. But most of the time they issue this for 10 years, and usually 5 years into that you're able to naturalize. Yeah.
So what is the meaning of naturalize?
Naturalize is when you apply to become a US citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And B1, B2 is also of 10 years, right?
B1, B2, the visa stamp itself is valid for 10 years, but then every trip that you make is should not exceed 6 months, 180 days. There's a way to internally extend that to make a trip like about a year, like get another extension or something. But generally speaking, you are expected to leave. So whenever you go in like F1, B1, B2, J1, like all these types of visas, there is this question of intent. Is what is your intent? That is why whenever you go for a B1, B2 interview or you go for an F1 interview, you need to take enough proof with you that you are going to go back. Which means if you show like some weak financials, etc., then they will presume that you intend to go and settle there. The burden of proof is on you to prove that I will not be settling there. I have things to come back to. I have enough financial means to support my stay there that I'll not even need to work there while I am there. So the intent is to come back. The same intent gets checked even not just at the visa phase. It also gets checked every time you try to enter the US on those visas. It's like, okay, do you have enough whatever, right? Like, are you displaying any signs of an imminent, overstay?
Got it.
And in a green card, you don't have to prove that intent. In fact, it's the ulta. You have to prove that you are actually staying there. And you haven't set your home like outside the US and you're just using the green card for whatever, right? So whenever you're entering the US on a temporary visa, they'll basically ask, what's your purpose of visit to the United States? If you are entering on a green card, the question they ask is, how long were you out for and why?
Got it.
Yeah.
Fair. And can you also walk us through the cost of getting a US visa as well as a green card? How much will I have to spend in order to get a visa or a green card typically?
It's mostly the government fees, and the government fees keeps varying. Like literally last year they changed it thrice for the green card route. I'm not sure of like the visit visa. I think it's $160 or something, right? To apply for the.
So US visa which I got, I paid rupees 15,000 as the visa fees.
Yeah.
So 15,000, I think, it'll be close to
it's $160,
$200.
$200, something like that. 160, 180, something like that
got it.
is the visa fee. And most people who are applying for whether it is B1, B2 or F1 or all these temporary visas essentially pay that. For a green card, it's slightly more expensive. When an employer is sponsoring, most of those expenses are handled by the employer, so people don't need to pay anything out of pocket for the most part. But then if you're doing like an EB1A, which you are self-sponsoring, you're not dependent on an employer, then you're looking to pay, probably around in today's kind of fee schedule, if you're premium processing it, around $4,000 or so for the first step, and for the second step, which is the 485, you're looking to pay another like 2,000, 3,000 or something like that. But that is to move towards a green card eventually.
Got it.
Yeah.
So on an average, like you'll have to spend at least $7,000 to get a green card.
7,000 to 10,000 if you're doing it on your own, and if you're by the way, most people end up hiring an attorney also, and that's separate. Okay. But I'm just talking about the government fees.
And what are usually the charges of attorney?
Attorneys charge, there are attorneys that charge 5,000. There are attorneys that charge 15,000 also. So
dollars, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends on how competent they are, what is their fee structure, stuff like that. Yeah.
Fair. Very interesting. Can you also talk more about what exactly is Smart Green Card doing, and how are you helping people get green cards on a very convenient basis?
Smart Green Card is actually filling a very interesting gap. When I talk to you about this whole building your profile towards an EB1, we see a lot of professionals in the US, especially Indian professionals who are struggling for several years because of this green card backlog. They already have a pretty good career trajectory. They have been, they started their careers, 5 years later, they are in maybe managerial position, whatever, even maybe not managerial positions, but senior positions, mid-career positions and stuff. We see that they have already done a good amount of work in their career, but unfortunately, they haven't evolved to being thought leaders in the space. Now, what we come in and help is, how do we help them go from an expert that is in a company to an expert in the field, of being a thought leader in the field. And most of these people, because they don't come from like an academic background or so, they have all the necessary knowledge, but they don't know how to, let's say, publish papers talking about that knowledge, etc. Right? So that's where we kind of coach them and help them. Okay, here are few topics that we think you are an expert in. You can write papers on these topics, and then we help liaison that with some good journals that publish those papers and stuff. So we don't create the work for them because that's something they have to do, but we kind of refine their understanding of how it goes, and then based on that we then go to journalists and we are like, hey, are you interested in this story? Because like there is this professional who has, like, let's say, battery technology, like this person has excelled in the field of battery technology. Are you interested in this story? And some big outlets are interested in that because they are covering certain beats, etc. So then they do a spotlight on this person organically as press, and that can eventually be used to say that, hey, look, this person has gotten the necessary acclaim in the field. So all those 10 criteria that I named, we do one or the other thing to help them based on where their weaknesses are, to help them evolve whatever work they have into checking those boxes eventually. We don't do any legal paperwork for them because we are not attorneys. We are not, in that business. So we do work with a lot of licensed attorneys as well. So when these folks have a decent amount of, let's say, papers published and press pieces published and all these things, which it takes quite a bit of time to achieve, then we kind of, introduce them to an attorney. The attorney starts working with them, and that's how, eventually they do the legal paperwork and file for them and stuff. So this industry, or preparing a profile, prove that you are extraordinary ability, that is the bridge that oftentimes attorneys, at least until now, were unable to serve because it's a very technical thing. Like you need to understand, like if a client is a data science or a data, let's say a data center engineer, or let's say we have some clients who are like petroleum engineers. We have some clients who, most of our clients are like software engineers or data scientists. So they have a certain way of working in their workplace. We in fact have people from the commerce side as well. We have like a recent approval that was of a person who was working in an advertising, like digital marketing and advertising area as well. So how do you understand the grassroots level of their work at their daily workplace and provide them with the necessary amount of support over an extended period of time that they can translate that into something that is valuable, where then an attorney can understand, right? Oh, okay, these are the things that I can use to argue, blah blah blah. So that there's no one that was bridging that gap. And Smart Green Card, when I started it like 2.5 years ago, it was like the first company that addressed that gap. And yeah, now we work with a lot of attorneys as well, and we have 100+ approvals right now. I oftentimes tell my team, don't look at it as 100 people that got approved. I mean, we have different plans. So in the VIP plan, we have 100 approvals. Across all plans, we have more than 150 approvals at this point. So I tell my team that, hey, you shouldn't look at this number as 100 people approved. You should look at it as each person is saving 30 years of their life minimum, maybe 50, maybe 150. So at a minimum, you have saved 3,000 years just of the applicant. Now, what about their families? Now, suddenly their kids can work, or their wife can work, or spouses can work, and all that. So added all of that, you've saved probably like 10,000 painful years of people's lives, right? And that's the kind of impact that we are delivering.
That's lovely. And how many total green cards from your platform you would have gotten approved in the last 2.5 years?
We have around 150 at this point across all plans.
So 150 at this point, as in like at present, 150 people have got green cards from your platform, is
150 families.
Oh, 150 families.
Yes.
Okay.
Usually there's a beneficiary, and then they can add the family to it. Okay. Most of the time it's the spouse. Most of our clients have like US born children, so the children don't need green cards. But most of the time, yeah, it's the spouse.
Out of these 150 families, do you recall any interesting incident or anecdote where someone was very tensed or nervous and they like applied and got in, or their reaction? Any interesting anecdote from these 150 families?
Oh my God, you should talk to some of our client success managers, right? They work day and night with the clients, and there's a lot of stories, right? Like, I mean, we are not just part of their immigration journey. Once they are done with that program, we do a debrief, and in that we realize that we are part of your entire like career journey. There's one person who was in the clinical trials space. So he did a bunch of good work, but then this is how he started like posting on LinkedIn, publishing papers, posting about that on LinkedIn, etc., etc. And then obviously he got approved, but he's like, forget about the green card. The biggest value I got through the program is actually this career growth, because through that, he worked for a very small company, maybe like $5 million a year type of a turnover type of a company. And someone saw his postings on LinkedIn and stuff. And then they got a corporate contract. And that corporate contract, one corporate contract that people approached them for was for $3 million. The entire yearly turnover of the company is 5 million, and then this one contract was like 3 million worth, and that happened because this guy was constantly posting. Yeah, he was probably doing it, to evolve his profile for an EB1A, but he was thought leader in the field, and the company got the benefit of it. And then this guy was now he's king, right? Like he's like, okay, yeah, mujhe itna do, like this is my rate and stuff like that. So he was able to like triple his salary just because he got that leverage at his workplace. I mean, those are the types of corporate impact that we are not even talking about. We don't even we are not even tracking that could also be the impact of something that we do.
That's just crazy. I mean, $3 million.
Yeah, and we've been through clients. We've seen divorces happen. We've seen like marriages happen. We've seen like family dramas that stopped people. So we are literally at this point, in their personal life areas as well, where when a journey is this intense, there's a lot of emotions attached to it, and every one of our client success managers is basically trained to understand that, hey, look. As much as it is a professional journey, as much as it is like a journey for this purpose as well, it's also a very emotionally draining journey, because these are people who have been emotionally drained for the past like several years, and they want to get out of that thing using all their work experience and things. Yeah.
How big is your team right now?
We have about 100 people right now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Lovely. And all of them are based in US or some of them in India?
We have people spread across the world. We have it in India, in the US. A couple of people are in Europe as well. Oh. So we have a pretty... we need to do that because of time zones and stuff like that. But we have like a core client success management team, and then we have support teams, right? Like people who work with journalists, people who work, experts who are able to like look at a profile and tell that, hey, look, these are potential topics you can write about. Here are ways where you can evolve yourself to project yourself better in this expertise area, etc. So all of those together, we have like a pretty solid team.
Got it. Lovely. And you said that you worked in a small company that time, Tesla. And Tesla, of course, like everyone knows, Elon Musk is like the guy. So tell us more about your experience of working in Tesla, and did you get a chance to interact with Elon Musk? And if yes, how was that interaction? What did you learn from him?
So back then, since Tesla was relatively smaller, it was about 10,000 people. There was this phase, if you Google it, you'll see that it's called production hell. So around the time I was at Tesla, Tesla was going through a major push for the Model 3. Model 3 was their ambitious like mass market vehicle and stuff like that, right? So this was this rigorous push for the Model 3, and that's what officially they coined as production hell. So that was a very intense period. During that period, right, like anybody who did not perform like was cut. And at one point in time, Elon had fired 2 layers of management under him. So like VPs and all gone, and then like another like senior directors and all that gone. And I was reporting to my manager was reporting to his manager, and then she was reporting directly to Elon. So that existed for about 4 or 5 months.
And both your managers got fired?
No. This was after the fire.
Oh, it was after the fire.
This was after certain leadership, layer of the sandwich was gone. And that period of time was when I got to see and see the working style and what is it that really inspires people. And the good thing here is I got into Tesla at a relatively earlier phase of my career, so I would consider it as a blessing, because that was a point when I was telling people like, hey, push me, like I want to learn in 1 year what otherwise I would learn in 5 years. And those kinds of environments are great if you want to learn, if you want to accelerate your career, along with obviously all the perks that come with it.
So have you interacted with Elon Musk?
Briefly, a few times.
And how was your interaction? What did you learn from him?
So the general thumb rule at Tesla is if you don't need to talk to that person, don't talk to that person. But there were a couple of instances where, we were, people, I see a lot of people like trolling, that, hey, no, he didn't sleep in the factory, blah, 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 that kind of a thing. Him sleeping in the factory is pretty common, or a pretty known fact, right? So one day I was working late. There was some other issue on the manufacturing line, and I had to get a certain thing resolved. So then there were a bunch of technicians that I had to put together. And this was probably at like 11 o'clock in the night, 11:30, 12, something like that. And, I was like, hey, like we got to fix this issue. Let's get into a conference room and figure out like what's going wrong. And then you have these conference rooms, right? You open the door and the automatic sensors turn the lights on. So the lights turned on, and then I suddenly hear a voice. It's like, who the fuck is that? And this is Elon. Like he was sleeping in the conference room essentially at that point. And then I'm like, okay, like let's get out of here. Like this is not a good. So that was, he didn't even see me, but it's like, just why are you here, like disturbing me, right? So that was one general. But I did see him up close in a few meetings, like 1 or 2 meetings. He would just cut to the chase, right? Like, and generally there is this practice of painting even if some shit is breaking loose. You paint the good picture first, and then this is corporate etiquette essentially. And most people who came with this like traditional corporate etiquette would just get cut immediately, because it's like, okay, cut that crap, tell me what's wrong, because I'm here to solve the problem that you're not able to solve. So don't give me all the good stuff. And then when we get into that problems, it's like, hey, it's a very intense problem solving session, which is basically from first principles, right? Most people think that इसने इतने सारे महान चीजें किए हैं. People think that, oh, there's some great next level genius type of thing and on an everyday level that he's applying. It's not, surprisingly, it's not that. It is like the fundamental, like axiomatic baseline things that he questions, and somehow that is what's required today. The same happened with SpaceX, right? Like you want to solve for the cost of travel, get that freaking rocket back. That's the baseline thing that you can do, and then you optimize from there. Now, yeah, that is a technological challenge, yes. But for you to like even realize that is a technological challenge and solve for that, that's why SpaceX is where it is right now. Same with Tesla, right? Like even the simplest of things, he would basically say, okay, let's say for example, there's some rattling sound in the car, and people know that this is from like some sort of like a motor or something. After a few days, if it doesn't get solved, he'll basically be like, bring a motor, cut it in half, and show me the parts. Like cut it in half, like literally you could see like motors cut in half, and then you would be like, okay, point at the exact part. These are all very logical things, but most of the time when you're working in a corporate environment, common sense stops becoming that common. And that's when, you have hierarchies and managers and this and that. There are a lot of like public emails, emails that are public right now of what he has sent, right?
What are some of them?
Yeah, there's basically it's like managers who try to build silos and who create unnecessary spheres of importances in the company for no reason. If you don't let people go to whoever they need to go to in order to solve the problem, you'll soon find yourself working at another company. Like point blank. God. And I love that style. It's like I had the time of my life there.
But don't you feel scared sometimes if, let's say, you are on the receiving end and if you receive this kind of an email?
It's life on the edge. डर के आगे जीत है.
Yeah, no, pretty interesting. I read somewhere that Elon Musk is someone who knows almost every problem that is happening in all his companies, like be it Tesla, SpaceX, any of the companies, and he would go to the ground reality, whatever is the problem, like to the root cause, and try to just fix it. That is like the kind of detailing he does in all the ventures.
Yep. See, so Tesla has multiple factories, right? I worked in the Fremont factory. That's their flagship, like the first factory. It's kind of like, and this is also public information. He looks at of course the car is a product, but then he looks at the factory as a product as well. So it's like the machine that makes the machine is also a product that we should be able to replicate. So as much as the car is in a constant state of evolution to become better and better, the factory itself is in that state that you can replicate it around the world. And that is the kind of spirit you need to have in order to, go super quick in the world. So another example is in the Fremont factory, obviously, see how would you measure real estate in a factory?
How do you measure real estate?
Yeah. What's your unit of measurement of real estate in a factory?
Unit of measurement as in like the carpet area.
Yeah.
Square feet.
Yeah, square feet, right? So in the Fremont factory, everything was spread across. It was square feet. How do we optimize for square feet? But then when the Fremont factory got so optimized, then the question arose, is like, no, I want to measure the next factories in cubic feet. So what about this space now? Now, I mean, it's a very simple concept to think about it, right? Like, us हवे का क्या करें? Right? Fill that up.
Wow.
Somehow. Engineers के लिए it's a big headache because now if something breaks up there, what do you do, right? Like how do you? But that is a space that is open opportunity which you are not using.
Wow.
I mean, if you think about it, it's very basic.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah.
No, but still, I mean, when you asked me, I couldn't think of cube feet. I was like square feet, like the real estate would be measured in the square feet only. Like, I didn't think that, the space in the air, that is also something which can be utilized.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, by simply measuring a factory in cubic feet, you can kind of think about the entire flow in a different way. Yeah. There's also, so see, when a car is being assembled, there is this final leg of the assembly called general assembly. That's when the body comes, the battery gets attached, the doors get attached, the dashboard, everything, all that gets attached, the tire gets attached and stuff. At that point, you basically have a spot where you can see the car for the first time, right? And somehow, and this is kind of like a Steve Jobs level, addiction to perfection. Somewhere it was not fitting well, right? Then it's like, just change the floor into bamboo flooring of that spot. That's when the car began to look like, it's in the showroom, like all that shiny it's like an amazing looking car when it is getting ready at its final, like if you want to evaluate it for your quality defects or whatever else, you need to be in that mode where even the background is so pristine that you are able to then see that defect if it is there. So this is also an example of like very fundamental thinking. But no,
very, very inspiring. And since you've stayed in the US for 10 to 12 years that you mentioned, and you also visit India almost for 1 or 2 months every year, how are people in India different from people in USA?
So generally speaking, I think here's what I noticed before, which I think is changing now. I feel like in India, the individual intelligence is very high, and collective group intelligence doesn't become the summation of the individual intelligence. It kind of falls a little bit short of that for whatever reason. In the West, and US is where I've been most exposed to, so I'm kind of predisposed to say in the US, what I've noticed is individual intelligence is relatively less if you do a one-to-one map with India. But group intelligence, when a group of those people come in, it's greater than the sum of the parts. And I've been searching for the answer for this for a long period of time. Kya hota hoga? Like, what is that, tadka that creates this difference? I feel like there is a certain work culture type of a thing, dedication to certain level of perfection and certain work cultural aspects which creates this difference. And that was a big shocker to me. I'm like, acha, like how does even work get done? This is invisible, right?
So how is the Indian work culture different from the US work culture?
I feel like in the US there is a relatively more top-down approach of, okay, this is the broader goal that needs to get served. I'm talking about good companies. There are crappy companies where like, everything is broken and stuff like that. But in good companies, generally there is a very clear vision and a mission and stuff. And then it gets executed at pretty much every level. And this group intelligence at smaller levels and then larger levels and larger level, it kind of compounds, and it pushes, in a much more accurate manner to go deliver that goal. Which I think in India, I mean, if you look at very well run companies now, which this generation is running, or like one generation prior is running, it's actually run pretty well. I think we are getting to that point now. But until now, there is still a little bit of like, I think it's the government-ish affinity for bureaucracy. A lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy to be there. In the private sector also was there. But I mean, it's changing a lot now.
And since you have stayed in the US, so what is one thing you think India can learn from USA?
How do you put the right person in the right place where they are able to deliver the maximum value regardless of their educational qualifications, regardless of anything else that they have done? This is, I think, the fundamental crux there, because in today's day and age, especially with people, the meaning of college, the meaning of education has kind of gone away now, because education is democratized, right? Like YouTube, you can learn pretty much anything you want to learn for free. So when that is the case, then why do you measure someone by like their degree and all that? So, but I think there's a lot of that even now, like unless you are a certain graduate, you can't apply somewhere, etc., etc. But I think in the US, it's way different than that. There are certain jobs which still feel like, say that people need to have these degrees, but places like Tesla, and other companies which are cutting edge, they don't have this requirement. So as long as you can do the best job for that position, you have a claim to be there. And the point that starts going away, you're no longer needed there. Maybe there's some other position, or find something else. So when this is coded into like the workplace, the expectation is set pretty much around performance at that point. That optimizes for performance. It optimizes for people to be doing the right things, not from like a grunt work standpoint, but from an actual passion standpoint. Because if I'm feeling passionate about something else and I can prove that I'm good at that, now even if I'm like, I don't know, a 10th pass, I can work on that. And I have had so many colleagues who are like top-notch cybersecurity experts, coders and all that, who, when I ask them, hey, what did you study? They're like, hey, I just went to community college and dropped out and whatever, right? And then they got some internship, proved themselves there, rose up the ranks, and then your work speaks for you. So making work speak more than your on-paper credentials is what I think we should learn.
That's lovely. And last question, what do you think USA can learn from India?
You saw that Joe Rogan podcast where, that's this it's very famous reel-worthy content also that a lot of people keep repeating. Great times create bad times create strong men creates good times, good times create weak men creates bad time, and then the circle back again, right? So I feel like India at this point is at a very underestimated position. Whether it is UPI, whether it is the pace of development, whether it is pretty much any and every metric that you're looking at, like foreign investment coming into India, there is a growth trajectory that is going on, which is not, if I talk in your financial terms, priced in into the broader valuation of the company, of the country. So I think US can learn from India how to take, even if you look at a tech stack standpoint, take it to a point where it is relatively easier for entrepreneurs then to explode it, right? Like, for example, like UPI, or many other avenues that have come lately. So how, a simple example here is, in the US, the internet is very, very expensive. It's like $40 a month or something for unlimited internet. The same thing that we call like Geo Unlimited here. It's like $40 a month, if not more. In India, it's $5 a month or so, right? Like 400 rupees or something. Yeah. So how do you deliver it at scale? And if you look at any sort of technology advent, India has had the benefit of a blank slate when US has built their technology based off of an evolution that has happened in the 90s. So now you have a little bit of tech debt that, you need to build on top of that. But when India is like, okay, blank slate, let's start from now, India starts thinking about, okay, how do I make the best use of what's now and take a leap, rather than build on top of something that existed. And if you visit pretty much, and this is this is something that I've observed, if you visit any airport in the US, and then you visit Mumbai airport or Bangalore airport and all that, I am just amazed, like the beauty of the airport, the grandeur of the airport, especially in Asia. In India, yes, but generally in Asia, it's something else. You'll never be able to see this kind of grand. Yeah, you'll be able to see big airports, but the infrastructure is not grand. It's not making a statement, right? And for a country that rich, why isn't it that you're not able to express that grandeur? The one thing I point to is India struggled with the lack of airports for a long time. And now when the country has good funds, now we are like, okay, yeah, let's just make life king size and just project it out to the world. But then the US is, working it on top of a certain infrastructure that existed before. Now you have kind of like limitations, like you have to work with that, blah, blah, blah. So I think the challenges are very interesting here.
So do we see Saiman Shetty shifting back to India?
I mean, I want to spend a lot of time in India, to be honest, right? Our team is here. I love working with the team. I simply am energized every time. There's a certain type of lull that you experience when you are in a, hyper modernized, like everything is comfortable kind of society. And as an entrepreneur, I don't like a lot of comfort that way, right? Like I want some or the other thing troubling me. And the right blend of that trouble, as well as the, in Mumbai, for example, you see everybody in a rush to go somewhere. मतलब कहीं ना कहीं तुम जाते होंगे ना, like there is a rush to get somewhere. It's visible on the streets, it's visible everywhere. That kind of rush, is what drives you. When you are in that, it drives you end to end.
Yeah, I agree. Very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for doing this. It was fun talking to you, and we covered like a lot of aspects about the visa and green card thing. And you're doing a phenomenal job using smart green cards. So keep up the best, and wish you the best for your future endeavors as well.
Thank you so much. Lovely content that you create. So please keep doing that as well. And it was my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. I'm sure that a lot of people would get their green cards now after watching this. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks. अगर आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आया होगा तो आई रिक्वेस्ट यू टू शेयर इट विद ऑल योर फ्रेंड्स एंड सब्सक्राइब टू आवर चैनल सो दैट वी कैन गिव यू मोर वैल्यू एडिटिव कंटेंट इन द शॉर्टेस्ट अमाउंट ऑफ टाइम. हमको ये बताइए कि आपको कौन से काइंड ऑफ गेस्ट चाहिए. हमको ये बताइए कि कौन से क्वेश्चंस मुझे नहीं पूछने चाहिए थे, कौन से क्वेश्चंस मुझे और पूछने चाहिए थे ताकि आपको और ज़्यादा वैल्यू मिल सके, और कौन से ऐसे पार्ट्स हैं जो आपको बिल्कुल पसंद नहीं आए ताकि हम लोग ये पार्ट्स ट्रिम कर सके फ्यूचर एपिसोड्स में. सो थैंक यू सो मच वंस अगेन फॉर वॉचिंग दिस एपिसोड एंड कीप शेयरिंग ऑल आवर एपिसोड्स विद योर फ्रेंड्स एंड कीप गिविंग अस फीडबैक so that we can improve and come up with better quality content.